Just a quick note about how to communicate with us. We are providing the session, delivering the session using Microsoft Teams. If you have any problem with accessing the chat, please try logging out and logging in again. We know that Teams sometimes is a bit challenging. Also, trying to paste the link in private or incognito tab on your browser may also help. So I hope it doesn't pose a problem to you, but we know that sometimes that helps. If you want to use the chat icon to put your comments there and your questions throughout the session, please do so. You can also raise your hand if you'd like, and if we can, we will call out some people to collaborate with us and speak, turn on their mics and speak and ask questions. If you have any problems with internet, I hope that does not happen. Even myself, if for some reason my connection cuts, please stay in the call. I will rejoin as soon as possible. As long as someone stays in the meeting, Microsoft Teams should be able to continue the recording. So again, if you don't have access to the chat, try leaving and joining us. And like I was saying, the session is being recorded. If you do not allow to be part of a recorded session, please disconnect, and then you can follow up with the recording on YouTube. On our channel, you can find us there, MS Excel Toronto Meetup. A shout out to Microsoft Reactor Toronto. This is a program by Microsoft dedicated to helping communities share their knowledge and learn with each other, anything related to technology. If you are interested in any tech topic, check their website on Meetup, because they have sessions almost every day or every day even, especially Microsoft technology, of course, but a lot of different topics. So if you are interested, just check them out. A lot of interesting and valuable content there. The next two sessions, the next one in November, we usually run a session every month. The Meetup group has been running since May 2019. And the next session will be on November the 10th. Please note that before the time had been advertised to noon, but now it has changed to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we will have Christian Engel talking about how to deal with errors in Power Query. And on December the 8th, we have George Mount presenting about what Excel users should know about Python. And we may have an extra topic also after that. I'm waiting on the details to then let you know about that. About Excel events, there's a ton of Excel events going on, some free, some paid, but all of them very exciting opportunities to learn and improve your skills. The next one is next week, October 29th, the Bangladesh Excel Summit, an amazing list of topics all related to Excel and Excel for businesses. Check their website. They have free content and also paid content, but the paid content is quite affordable. I recommend checking the event and registering. In February, we will have the second edition of Global Excel Summit, and I will be giving you a 10% discount code soon. So keep an eye on your mailbox, and as soon as I know that the code is activated, I will send you that information. And finally, about events, if you follow Faraz Shaikh on LinkedIn, he posts this list every month with collection of all the meetup groups, at least, I'm not sure if all, but the meetup groups about Excel that we are aware of around the world and the sessions happening that month. There's still 3 sessions happening after today's our presentation today, so keep an eye on that. If you want, take a peek of the slide, and then you can check on those presentations. And belated Happy Spreadsheet Day. It was celebrated a few days ago on Sunday, on October the 17th. This day was invented by Deborah Dalglish. She is an MVP, Excel MVP for 20 years now. She has been an Excel MVP. And coincidentally, she's from Toronto. So, and she came up with this idea and took all the steps to make this an official and recognized day, the spreadsheet day. And the date of October 17th was chosen because that was the date, the day in 1979, when VisiCalc, the first program, the first spreadsheet program, was launched in the market for personal computers. And I have a typo there, program. Okay. And it's time to meet our guest. Enough talking. Today we have Sharon Grimshaw. She is part of the Excel team, and she's a program manager there and focuses on enabling learners of all ages to use data and spreadsheets. She's passionate about making Excel accessible to everyone. And so that everyone can handle their tasks in Excel in an easy and quick way. Today, Sharon will be presenting about data literacy. I'm very excited about for having Sharon here. We also have Elisabetta with her, part of the same team. Thank you both for being here. And Sharon, this is your stage now. Let us know what how it is to work with the Excel team. I can imagine it must be exciting every day. And let us know what you have for us today.
Thanks very much, Célia. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. I'm very excited to share. Yeah, I'm very excited to share what we've been thinking about in terms of data literacy on the Excel team, and also to hear with you and partner with all of you to figure out what we can do in the future to make Excel and data easier for students and even people new to Excel to learn along the way. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Sure, let's do it. If you want to share your screen or if you want to start your presentation, I'm going to stop and I'm sorry, I should have stopped already so that people can see you, and please go ahead and present. You can share your screen if you want to. There you go.
Sounds great. So I figured I would start with the basics, who I am, what I'm doing, and why I'm talking to you. So I'm Sharon. I'm on the Excel team, and within the Excel team, I run the HackingStem program. Now, the HackingStem program is our EDU arm of Excel. So the goal of HackingStem is to really prepare students for the jobs of tomorrow. And a lot of that is STEM careers, working with data, thinking critically, working in a collaborative way. So the HackingStem program was born about 6 years ago, actually out of a hackathon at Microsoft, and has grown and gotten adopted and grown up as a part of our Excel program. So we actually recently graduated and joined the Excel team about a year ago, which is pretty exciting. We have a mission statement that drives everything that we're doing at HackingStem, and it is modernizing STEM education to enable every student on the planet to learn more. There are 2 words that I'll pick out of that. The first is modernize. So we don't want to reinvent STEM education. We don't want to force people to learn things a new way or to throw out any of the old content that we have. But we do want to modernize it and make sure that it works given the new jobs, the new careers, the new needs, the new skills that students and learners everywhere need to understand. So it's about building on what exists today. And then the other piece is every student. How do we make it equitable for everyone? How do we give everyone access? How do we think about doing things online, doing things collaborative, doing things interdisciplinary so that it appeals to everyone? And how do we ultimately bring STEM to everyone?
Would you mind telling people what STEM stands for? I'm not sure if everyone knows.
Certainly, thank you. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's basically that bucket of everything that relates to data.
Yeah, exciting. Yeah.
And then I also have our link here in the slides, aka.ms/HackingStem is where you can find all of the different curriculum, project, mission statement about my team. Just a couple of logistics before we begin. As Célia mentioned, I'd love to get questions during the chat throughout. I'll lean on Célia and Elisabetta to call things out as they come out. Raise your hand, unmute yourself. I'd love to hear from you during the presentation, so let's do this informally. If you do have tech troubles, Célia also covered this. Sometimes things go wrong. So if things go wrong, try rejoining the meeting, message in Teams, and we'll try and get you back up and running. And then I also included a running slow because I will drop a few links during the presentation so that you can try things in real time. And sometimes if your performance in Excel is running slow, it will be helpful to run in incognito mode. If you would like to follow along in the deck during the presentation, I have it available at aka.ms/Excel Toronto webinar. So with that, let's get started.
I'll put those links on the chat.
Thank you.
Anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first
did, Célia.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thank you very much. The first thing that I wanted to do is make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of data literacy. Let's start with data. What is data? It could be anything. It's facts, it's numbers, it's bits of information. It's really anything that you're collecting or counting or manipulating or analyzing. And what do you do with it? You really do everything with data, which is why data literacy is so important. So previously we would talk about financial literacy. That's reading and how it becomes the basis of any other subject that you're teaching students, any other skill that a learner is learning themselves. Data literacy is becoming that kind of centralized skill that everybody needs to learn for this 21st century, where we're both the creators of lots of data and also the consumers of data. So every time you open your Facebook feed, it's algorithms behind the scenes that are figuring out what's the right thing to surface to you. Data is everywhere, and everybody will encounter data. So data literacy has become all the more important. Let's start with a little bit of an icebreaker. What does data education look like in your classroom or job? And drop answers in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself.
If we have any teachers, especially today, we would like to hear from you. Don't be shy. I would like to know if that the data literacy has been a topic that teachers have kept in mind lately, or if it is something that is not part of the agenda yet.
And if you're not a teacher, what does data look like in your everyday life? How are you bringing data to other people's minds, or how are you the creator of data?
There's Bob there. Bob, you want to participate? Maybe not. I can tell about my experience as an Excel consultant. Of course, data is part of my work. In some cases, I help businesses analyze their data. Other times it's about cleaning that, and before they can do that, we need to prepare the data to clean the data. And so Excel helps us with doing that work in different ways. And then it's up to them, after they have those tools available, to read their data in an easier way, to then make decisions based on what they can see from the data.
Thank you for sharing. And Tracy also shared using in gradebook spreadsheets, school wellness data, course selection. That's a great contribution as well. I'm using data in my personal life as well. I'm currently in the midst of planning my wedding. I got engaged last year, and data, thank you very much. Data has been a huge part of everything from budgeting to figuring out how many people and how many meals. It's very central to party planning for us. And of course, everything is built in Excel. How could we do anything different? Thanks very much, everyone. And if you want to continue dropping ideas of how you're using data or what education looks like to you in the chat, I'd love to hear from you. So touching on some different agenda topics today, we'll go through 5 steps, and I'll spend the most time talking about what you can actually use in your classroom or with your kids, or when you're introducing people to Excel. So we'll first start with why data literacy, why it's important. Then we'll go into the Day of Data Orcas program, which is a program that Microsoft just released over the summer and is an introduction to data literacy for students. Then we'll do a little bit of behind the scenes, so kind of pulling back that curtain and showing you the different things that we use to build templates. How do we make Excel more useful for everyone? We'll follow up with some, I guess I'll call them rocket pitches. We'll do some really quick kind of round the room of the different resources that we've come across, and we'd welcome it at that time if y'all have any resources that you found really useful. We'd love to hear from you as well. And then we'll also see if we have some time for Q&A at the end. Though again, let's make sure that we have some Q&A the whole time. So whenever you have a question, feel free to reach out. With that, let's launch into that first topic of why data literacy. So there's kind of 3 points I'll leave you with on data literacy and why it's so important. The first is data literacy is a skill, and it's a new skill that people are not yet quite confident with. So if you think about the skills and the careers that are growing the fastest currently, data science has experienced a 650% job growth in the United States since 2012. So we were looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it predicts data science to be one of the fastest growing fields over the next 10 years. It's only behind healthcare workers and clean energy. So if we think about what skills our students, our kids, our learners need to understand to be prepared for those future jobs, data literacy is kind of at the center point of all of it. And then it's also a skill that is very transferable because we don't know what the jobs of tomorrow will look like, which means that we need to prepare students with these soft skills along the way of how we set them up for the future that we don't know yet, the future of careers that have not yet been invented. And finally, I'll leave you with one more piece of data because this is a talk about data. And that is, in a recent study, 93% of businesses thought that it was important for their employees to be data literate, but only 24% of those employees were actually confident in their data literacy skills. So that gap, that's 93% of businesses, 24% of employees. There's a huge gap in there of what could make people more successful in their jobs and what the expectations of employers are. There's currently a transition happening given that computers are becoming a lot more popular. Previously, there were a lot of jobs where students, honestly, their jobs are getting replaced by computers. So students need to be more of creative thinkers these days. They need to be able to problem solve and make decisions and analyze data and do things that computers are not yet equipped to handle because computers are getting so prevalent. I'll share just a quick video clip of Davis School District, which is in Utah, of students learning and analyzing data.
So here in my classroom, we started by watching a quick video from some astronauts who talked about how they have used data specifically to help them be successful in their careers and successful in things like making it to the moon. They used that as an example. And then we pulled up a practice Excel sheet where students were able to work with data and practice using it to answer questions, to make observations, and all those things that scientists do.
Hi, my name is Jolie and I'm in 4th grade. Today we used Excel in the classroom. The data we were analyzing is like gravity and the mass of rockets and the length of rockets. It was really easy because it was like showing like bar graphs and like saying which is the third lowest or which is the third highest or which is the first highest or which has less mass than this.
It kind of just connects all those things about why do we learn this code? Why are we learning coding in our class? What does that have to do with the future? Well, that's where our future is going. So understanding that, wow, this coding I'm doing today, I can go write video games. And so I think it just gave them that inspiration and that dream and gave them that opportunity to dream big.
We want them to identify as a problem solver and to be able to, whether they're in kindergarten or they're in 12th grade, be able to when problems come up in their lives, to be able to solve those and look at them. And data is a huge piece to that.
So my big takeaway from that video is that data literacy is really a transferable skill. It's behind everything that kids might want to do. It's why you learn coding. It's the basis for AI and machine learning. It's how you build video games, as they called out. Data literacy is connected to one or more contexts, but if you're changing disciplines, you don't need to relearn it because it's that kind of foundational skill. So if I liken it to traditional literacy, if you decide to read mysteries rather than sci-fi, you don't have to relearn how to read, you just change contexts. And here are just some examples of careers where data literacy is important. Everything from insurance to healthcare to media and entertainment, all rests on data. The second point I'll leave you with is that data is everywhere. And I have a quote from Data Science for Everyone, which is an initiative to get data literacy in the hands of more students around the world. Every second of every day, the world creates enough data to fill 50 new Libraries of Congress, which is this huge building full of a ton of books. Students, in order to be safe and participating digital citizens, need to understand data because they're going to have data collected about them regardless of if they're ready or if they're knowledgeable about the data that's being collected. They need to understand what data is, how to read it, how to make decisions from it, because they're going to be surrounded by data all the time. And many day-to-day tasks involve data because it is everywhere. And it all counts as data literacy. So it may sound scary and intimidating, but everything from deciding what brand of orange juice to buy in the grocery store based on price or based on calorie count, that's all data-based decision making. Building next year's budget of what you're going to spend money on based on the pile of receipts from this year, that's data-based decision making with a larger data set. And then explaining either of those decisions to another person or explaining why you made the decision, that's data literacy. So we all have this experience with data literacy. It's just about naming it and becoming more confident in ourselves for data. So here's an example of a much larger data set and how we can actually bring data to life through understanding more about data and data visualization. So here's a set of 10 years of earthquakes data, all earthquakes higher than 5.5 on the Richter scale from the Geological Survey. It's about 20,000 rows of data, and each row has 5 data points: time, latitude, longitude, date, and year. So that's about 100,000 data points, which is massive. But if we put a picture to it, patterns start to emerge. So now we're viewing all of that data on a globe. You can see why the Ring of Fire is called the Ring of Fire. You can see why Japan is earthquake prone. You can see why California and Mexico are earthquake prone, and why it's so common to have earthquakes there.
And
then
that
you can
chart
also
is made in
see
Excel, right?
Sorry, what was that? Yes, this is in
That chart
Excel.
is made in Excel. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't think a lot of people know about the 3D charts there and the map charts.
This is 3D charting in Excel. You can also see kind of the split between Africa and South America, how they grew apart. And you can see all of the tectonic plates now as we're looking at it based on the earthquake data. So it's actually making things that were invisible visible to everyone, which is pretty cool. And all that is just by visualizing data in the right way and knowing how to represent the data that we originally had. Final point I'll leave you with is that data literacy evens the playing field. So equity is a huge part of our mission here at HackingStem, and data unlocks these careers, these capabilities, these opportunities for students. And it also means that they can play to their interests, play to their hobbies. So everything from Netflix using your data to personalize what TV shows get surfaced to you, to a voice assistant learning your accent or learning the different words you use or learning the phrases so that it can better assist you. And then you look more to the future of how does a smart car know where to turn? It's a bunch of sensors that are sending a stream of data. So that's a little bit more futuristic, but coming more and more prevalent today is cars being able to make decisions based on data around them. And students have all of these sets of interests, and data underlies all of their interests. So it's really about finding the hobby that a student is interested in, showing them how data already plays a role and getting them really confident in themselves. Any questions so far before I jump into kind of a spotlight on one of our data literacy programs?
No, only some comments from Bettina from the STEM to Hub. She's sharing that they have teacher workshops that prepare teachers to teach data science, as well as using data to examine the effectiveness of teacher professional development. So that's
very
great.
Cool. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, and people were impressed with the 3D charts, I guess.
3D charts are pretty cool. I recommend giving them a shot. Yeah, that's enough for a whole separate talk, though. So
yeah, Bettina's saying that they do. Apparently, they use those with the HackingStem lessons. That's
awesome.
Nice too.
I love it. So I'll jump into Day of Data Orcas. So Day of Data Orcas is all about bringing those concepts that we've been talking about kind of in the general sense to life. So how do you actually teach students about data literacy in an interesting way, in an engaging way, in a cross-disciplinary way, so that you're really catching students where they are and getting them excited about what the possibilities are. And I have a holographic whale on the screen because this experience actually was inspired by a project in HoloLens. So there's a project called Critical Distance, which is launching at the Smithsonian actually right now. And the goal of it is to immerse you in the life of Kiki and her family. Kiki's a 6-year-old southern resident orca. She's a part of an endangered species. And this project is all about how you can use data to understand why she and her family are decreasing in population and what we might be able to do as a society to support them and help them. So it's all about that powerful impact that data has and helping us understand what Kiki and her family are facing. And this could be applied to any endangered species around the world. So there are also supplementary activities as a part of this for students to go out and find what that endangered species around them is and figure out what data might be interesting to share or to make a case for why we should protect these endangered species. I'll share a quick video introduction of the program, and then I'll dive into some of the details.
Orcas are social animals, just like humans. They always stay close to their families, and while they're in their family groups, they play with each other.
Data is all around us, and when we learn to read data, understand data, and gain insights from data, we can solve many of the world's most pressing challenges.
We're using AI to translate orca sounds so we can better understand what they need and help these endangered animals.
I'm hopeful because our tools are getting more powerful every day.
Powerful tools like Microsoft Excel allow us to organize, visualize, and analyze data. We can use Excel to uncover insights and make data-driven decisions. While engaging in these activities, students use data types powered by Wolfram to learn about Kiki the orca and her family's social structure directly in an Excel workbook. First, students explore data cards to learn about Kiki's family tree. Then, they learn to use dot notation for visualizing regions where southern resident orcas were recently spotted. Next, they use a variety of data and data visualization techniques to understand factors contributing to a decline in the orca population. Finally, they come up with questions and ideas to improve health of the ecosystem.
Everyone can get involved. The biggest change happens when everyone comes together and learns how to harness powerful tools.
So join us to learn more about how you can help conserve the orcas and earn your Orca Research Badge today.
Okay, so that was a whirlwind tour. Let's break down what we actually saw in that video and dive in a little bit more. So actually, at this point, I will invite you all to join me checking out the workbook itself. I'll be projecting here, but if you want to go into it, it is at aka.ms/orcas stage 1. And Célia, if you can drop that link in the chat, that would be awesome.
It's in the chat there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So all of these workbooks are, again, intended to work for everyone. So I'm actually displaying all of this in Chrome. It works across browsers, it works online, and it's all provided for free. So our goal is to give everybody access to this curriculum. In this workbook, we start with an introduction always, and this is how we lay out our lessons so that you learn the different types of things that you'll come across. And then we also start to introduce the different ways that you interact with Excel. So you saw that I just clicked that next button as a part of that. Part of our goal is to abstract away the complexities of Excel itself from it so that students can really dive into data and learn a little bit of Excel along the way. And I'll do a mix of talking about the student perspective and how we'd actually talk to students or teach students and some tips for integrating this in the classroom, with also pulling some curtains away so that we can see why we've made the decisions that we've had to put together this template and what we've learned in the process. So something that we got a lot of feedback from actually in the first iteration of Day of Data, which was back with Rockets last year, was students need a little bit of context setting for where they are in Excel and what the different languages that we use in Excel are. So when I say language, I mean the actual words that we're using to talk about Excel. And that was something that kind of caught us off guard, that students aren't necessarily familiar with a grid or a table or a formula bar. So we've actually started with definitions as a part of this so that students are learning what are the basics of Excel, how do I interact with Excel, so I can click on this icon, which is an example of a Wolfram data type, which brings the power of Wolfram actually into Excel so that you can access all that data. To this is a data validation dropdown, and I can use these to switch between different steps and find more content. To there are these checkpoints throughout the process of let me answer this question so that I can then get some feedback to make sure that I'm understanding concepts in real time. So all of that is kind of orienting students to the workbook. And in addition to that, we also do a video tutorial for students to give them an overview of the workbook. And again, all of that is just to get people a little bit more confident using spreadsheets themselves. And then the other thing that we wanted to do is make all of this fun. So I'll go to my favorite fun fact, which is how big an orca is. And we compare orcas to humans, salmon, which are a common food source of orcas, and elephants. And of course, your elephant needs to have floaties and goggles on if they're going to go swimming in the ocean with the orca. And actually, orcas and elephants are similar in mass, but very different in length, which was a pretty cool fact for students. And then along the way, we alternate by talking through content that students are learning. So that's everything from environmental science concepts to how you graph a thing. And then we always intersperse these moments where students can check what they're learning and apply the learnings. So they're actually doing as well as reading. So as a part of this, we are introducing students to data cards, which is an Excel concept. So students can click on all of these icons to get more information. And this is all about building relationships between different pieces of data. And then they can also use these drop downs to switch between different icons and learn more about the different whales in Kiki's family. So here we can learn about the different ages and build together that family structure. So if we're going to talk about a family tree, we wanted to have an activity where students are actually getting their hands wet with all of this and trying it out in real. So in here, we can go through and figure out who Kiki is, which is kind of she's the main character in our story. She's 6 years old, and build her family tree itself. So as I'm looking through this card, I can see that Kiki's mother is Princess Angeline. And then I just go through and I start to fill out this information. So now I see this real-time feedback that Kiki's mom is Princess Angeline, and I got that right. Okay, so now who is Princess Angeline's mom, so that we can build in the Kiki's grandma, and her mom is Saratoga, so then I can put together this family tree of Kiki. And then we also want to make sure that there's a connection to students' lives, because that's what really drives it home. That's what brings it to life for students. So there are these free response questions throughout that are just getting students to think a little bit and think about data in new ways that they might not have thought about. So a family tree is a source of data, and students often think about their mother or their grandfather or their cousin, but they don't think about that in terms of data. So now we're connecting Kiki's family tree to the student's family tree and having them compare the two. And that compare and contrast is all a part of data. Something that I also wanted to call out as a part of this is it's all gamified, because that, again, brings a lot more engagement to this template and makes students really excited to actually put in the information that they know. So every time I fill out one of these correctly, I get a slice of the Orca badge. And at the end, if I fill everything out correctly, I'll win this Orca badge, which is an Orca research badge. I'll kind of fly through the rest of this template, and you can check it out at a slower pace if you'd like to. But here we're just diving deeper into each of these concepts. So now we're learning about animals, and we're applying that same concept of data cards, but in a different way, so that we're building that relationship between the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and building that out for orcas and some of the other animals that are in their ecosystem. So I can explore any of those and see the taxonomic tree built out in real time for me. And then I have another lesson where I can apply my learnings along the way. And the final piece of it is we wanted to introduce students to coding, but we know that coding is always approached with some trepidation by students who are not as confident in their own coding abilities. So we wanted to show how you can use it actually in a context that then would be applicable to other fields, which is dot notation. And in Excel, you use dot notation to get more information about an object. So for example, when I'm looking at San Juan Island, then I can pull out more facts about San Juan Island by using dot notation. So for example, we always start with an example, and then we have students apply what they're learning. Here, I'm looking at the population, and then if I glance up at the formula bar, it actually shows me the formula behind the scenes using dot notation that I used to get that information. So I'm actually just looking at this cell, which is D17, and then I'm using a dot and dot population to pull out that. And then here's another example for latitude. So this is San Juan Island dot latitude and longitude. And then we also wanted to show that you can embed lots of things in Excel, not just numbers, which are what people more traditionally think of as data, but images or maps or different things like that that you wouldn't necessarily associate as data, but really any piece of information is data. So all this, again, is looking at San Juan Island and giving you different facts about it. And I'm a little bit of a broken record here, but something that we've found is just so important is having students apply everything that they're learning along the way. So we then teach them step by step how they use dot notation. So using a table where we've built a table for them with all of these sighting locations, latitude and longitude. Then if we start to step through, we get feedback on how we actually build out this set of data points so that then it can ultimately show up on the map. So here I'm looking at adding latitude into this column, and if I read the instructions, then I see it's by equals, and then I'll click on this column, and then it's going to be adding latitude. And then that column autofills because we're using a table, and table unlocks all of these different opportunities in Excel, all of these different connections. And then if I do that same thing for longitude and build that out, now we have longitude also in there, and the combination of latitude and longitude leads to a specific point on a map. So again, we're trying to make sure that students are able to focus on the data points and learning about data and seeing the power of data. So we're taking away the need to actually plot those on a chart, and we're doing that. So we're doing that behind the scenes for students so that they can see that that visualization really quickly, and again understand the impact that data can have and how you can combine all these different sources of data and all of these different visualizations of data to make sense of it. As a part of every workbook, we also include this gamification component and a reflection component for the student. So these are the two pieces that students would actually turn into a teacher to show that they're completing the activity successfully and learning more about data along the way. So if they win that badge and they fill out this, this reflection component, this student journal, they can turn these into their teacher and show their progress along the way. And then we also want to support educators along the way. So we want to always include the different standards, and all of these are standards aligned. So we're introducing the concepts that students already need to learn. And we include instructions for both the teacher running it and also the student to learn more about using Excel. I will bounce back over to my deck now and walk through each of those things that we discussed in that lightning round on the template. We build all of these using a set of principles. We're guided by these principles whenever we're building this type of learning material for students. We want to build things that are relevant. We know that data science is one of the fastest growing professions. Everybody needs data analytics. That's business in all sectors. And it's the goal is to stimulate reasoning, discourse, decision-making, ultimately to make a smarter world for everyone. So we want to use Excel to build those skills and also introduce Excel because it's a tool that's used in workplaces around the world. We also want to make things equitable for everyone. We want to make them dynamic. We want to make them scaffolded. We want to make them interdisciplinary. So we want to reach students from diverse backgrounds at multiple readiness levels and in an online environment. So this lesson in particular that we were walking through, part of the importance of it was we wanted to make it remote learning applicable so that when students are going home, they're not sliding backward in their learning around data. We want to make things accessible, and that kind of comes in two forms. First, for students with disabilities, our lesson plans include a column at the beginning, which is for screen readers. They include everything that's of high enough contrast for people with contrast needs or with color blindness. So we include that level of accessibility so that students of all abilities can reach their potential. And then we also mean accessible in terms of you can get this from anywhere for free, any internet-enabled device. And then finally, we touched on it a little bit before, but all of these are also aligned to standards so that they fit into existing curriculum. Again, we're modernizing curriculum, we're not replacing it. So here's a quick sample of how teachers that we've been working with have actually put this into their classroom and how they've run it. We have a whole bunch of resources that support you along the way. And that's everything from materials that you can bring into your class to trained stores professionals as a part of Microsoft Stores who can either run that experience for your class or run a professional development session if you want to learn more about it. So we're again trying to support you wherever you are and make everybody confident with data. So everything from, we like to start people off by watching the student overview so that students just get kind of a taste of what they'll learn as a part of the lesson and why data is cool, why data is exciting. Then we suggest connecting it to a career because that shows where the skill can be applied. And walking through kind of introducing them to different web pages, ultimately getting them into that workbook, and then making it relevant to the classroom itself. There are several different supplements that you can use along the way to mix and match, kind of plug and play into your classroom and make it really relevant for students because you know your students best. Any questions before I dive into what a sample lesson plan could look like?
There's no questions, but I just want to take a moment to apologize to everyone who was entering the wrong meeting. So apparently, I may have posted the wrong link on Meetup. So a lot of people were trying to join us. And only now, after one of the group members sent me a message on WhatsApp, I was able to send, I was aware of what's going on. So welcome everyone, those of you who just joined us. 1,000 apologies for that inconvenience, and the video will be up in a couple of days. I hope you can still enjoy the rest of our presentation. Thank you.
I'm glad everyone was able to join us. Just as a brief recap, we've talked about why data literacy is important. We've done a deep dive into the Day of Data Orcas program, and we'll share some links as part of this as well. And now we're actually looking at what tips and tricks are for actually bringing that into the classroom or introducing people to Excel and data that they aren't quite as confident yet. So building that confidence along the way.
Oz Soleil, he's asking something that was covered, but maybe we could repeat that. He's asking, what is the definition of data literacy?
Data literacy is manipulating, understanding, analyzing pieces of data, and data is a super broad term. So it's really anything can be classified as data, any piece of information, any fact, any number, any string, which really means that data literacy is everywhere and everything. But in this context, it's about analyzing, understanding, and applying data to everyday life.
Any comment, Oz? I know you are passionate about this topic, so feel free to. Sharon gave us permission to intervene and make comments, so.
No comment from me.
Okay, thank you.
And Oz also says that he was worried that Celia got attacked by a moose and is in the hospital. So Celia, I'm glad that you are not attacked by a moose.
No, I'm glad to. Yeah, so sorry that this happened. I know what happened. Yeah, it's the copy-paste thing and creating events from a past session. Anyways.
I'm glad we've got everybody in now.
Yeah, I'm glad too. Well, there's a moose there in the chat.
I love it. Okay, let's jump back in, and I'll go back just one slide because this will give you an overview of where we currently are. This is a sample procedure of how teachers have been applying this Day of Data program into their classroom today. So we will start with, what does the student overview look like? It's going to be very similar to the video we just watched, but it's much shorter because we want to get students the key information as fast as possible so that then they can jump into the data themselves and start to figure out where it's applicable to them.
Orcas are social animals, just like humans.
We're using AI to translate orca sounds so we can better understand what they need and help these endangered animals.
I'm hopeful because our tools are getting more powerful every day.
Everyone can get involved. The biggest change happens when everyone comes together and learns how to harness powerful tools.
So the goal of that was to be flashy. It was to get students hooked really fast because data is awesome, and to also pull on that emotional element of kids love animals, and introducing kids to data through whales is a super cool connection that they wouldn't necessarily have made. Then the second piece that we were talking about is, how do we show the relevance of data to their future? And one of the things that we did as a part of this is we talked to a bunch of experts about how they're using data in their lives or in their careers and why they think data is important. And we put together that collection on Flipgrid as a part of a feature called a mixtape, so that students can just go and visit that and select the things that they're most interested in terms of hearing from all of these different people about their perspectives on data. So it's really bringing that data to life. Okay, so now let's actually jump over to what the lesson plan actually looks like and where you can find all these resources. So as a quick recap, all of our all of our resources are focused on aka.ms/orca data. So this pulls everything together for you and brings all of these things that we've been talking about with relationship to this lesson to your fingertips in one place. So we have everything from that video that we were watching together at the beginning to the different workbooks that we just saw a demo of when we were walking through the different experiences that students actually look at. Here are the standards along the way that each of these workbooks have directly applicable to them. And then here are all of these different supplements that you can, again, use to mix and match. And it's everything from how do you make it globally relevant, because we know that not everybody lives by the ocean, not everybody has orca whales in their backyard like we do here in Washington and in Western Canada. So what is that endangered species that's local to you? How do you either support them by using your persuasive and critical writing skills, or how do you hone your presentation skills and your public speaking skills to actually talk about that endangered species to people around you? To the more data component of how do I learn more about the food chain and how data relationships connect together to build that food chain. Like, what animal eats what animal? We know that orcas are at the top of the food chain, but what comes below it, and what impact does that have on the orcas? And then let's dive into Excel and let's do even more data analysis. So this is a little bit of a more advanced lesson of how do we actually combine data sets and look at real world data to make noise pollution hypotheses about what could be happening with data. So our goal with these supplements is to broaden the reach of this program and let you really customize it for your students or your kids or your learners around you so that you can make it most relevant to the students in your lives. We built all of these lessons for students roughly 11 to 14. That's a kind of gamble at this point because it depends on how much data background a student actually has. So according to the standards and the teachers that we're talking with, the most relevant standards pointed to kind of a middle school timeframe. But with these supplements, you can also bring it either younger if you're working more from the presentation angle of finding cool pictures of orcas and getting people excited about orcas, to older students if you're looking at analyzing data, specifically this noise pollution data set, of actually going that extra step and applying the data in the classroom. And then we always want to include some fun things along the way. So if you want a Teams background that has a fun orca picture, or you want to build an Outlook signature, both of those are kind of fun ways to show your pride with orcas and also have a little bit of fun along the way. And then all of those links that I was talking about, Career Corner, Microsoft Stores, feedback for our team, all of that is also included as well. So let's step back just a little bit and look at that workbook really fast. As we talked about, the workbook always has that accessible version in column A, so we can see my focus is on A1, and all of that text is showing up in the formula bar. It's also color-coded, so the introductory functionality type things are in green, the student lesson is in yellow, so it's quick to actually look between them. In terms of learning targets, there are 3 that we're focusing on in this workbook. The first is identifying relevant data and data relationships. You're learning that through data cards. You're learning that through actually building out that family tree. It's also comparing and contrasting data. So we're doing that from the taxonomic structure where you can explore those similarities between different organisms. And then finally, it's how do you represent data? So we saw that in the map chart at the very end where we're using dot notation. And then evidence of learning is really important along the way as well. How do you know if the students are getting it? How do you know where they're struggling? And we do that in a combination of ways. We give real-time feedback to the student on whether or not they're making progress so that they can adjust in real time and understand where they need to focus more. And then there are also these things that are outputs of the lesson. So that's the student journal, the certificate of completion, the lesson extensions that you as a teacher get. I'll do a quick break for a discussion of how do you actually see this working in your classroom? What skills do you need your students to have to be successful?
This is an open question.
Yeah.
Oh, well, when I think about this and data literacy, I think about don't immediately trust your data. Have some skills to check out. Is it complete? Are there any fields that need to be cleaned up? Can you trust it? Is it full of duplicates? That's the classic example.
Yeah, all about cleaning your data, making sure that it's up to date, that it's relevant.
Yeah, and even if the person can't clean it themselves, at least be cognizant of the fact that it might not be ready for analysis or ready for any kind of use, even if a person isn't analyzing it, but they're just cleaning it to load it up into a database. Check it out first.
Definitely. It's a great point, and it's something that we need to really keep in mind the whole time we're looking at data. Is it believable? Is it trustworthy? Is it coming from a good source? Is it clean? All that leads to whether or not we're getting a good answer or making a good decision.
Yep.
Vivek, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I would also add, like, this is for younger kids and all, but if it is related to actual world where everybody is applying their skills and all, I would say the effectiveness of presenting data is also very critical. Not having data, tons of data doesn't make any sense if you cannot present it well.
It's a great point. It all comes down to how you're talking about data and what others are going to interpret from the data that you're looking at as well.
Henry on the chat is asking, are there any different perspectives regarding data quality from an adult's perspective versus a younger person's perspective? Are you aware of any discussion about this topic?
Yeah, it's a great question. My personal philosophy and our philosophy at HackingStem is we want to give students as close to what they'll be experiencing in the real world as possible, but we want to also introduce them in a way that they'll be successful. So we often find ourselves looking at real life data sets. They might be a little bit messy, they might be a little bit complicated, and then we try and simplify them down so that students can get across that main concept from the data, maybe be exposed to some of these different concepts or skills that they would need to learn along the way, but also we don't want to throw them in the deep end. So I would say I don't actually see a difference between the skill that a student needs from a student perspective versus an adult perspective. I just think the complexity that you start with is a little bit different.
But you raise an interesting question. This question was floating around a while ago on LinkedIn about teaching data cleansing. And I wonder how you do that. And you mentioned showing people things that are a little bit messy. But let me try this example. All right, so a friend got a master's degree in marketing. And they use all the fancy tools and everything in school, but then he gets out into the real world and winds up at some 10-person boutique, and the data's crap. And they don't know how to clean it, and they've got Excel. They don't have the fancy stuff that the university could afford. And can you really have like a data cleansing class? Because data comes in so many ways. And I went to a hackathon, and they kept telling us, we spent 2 weeks cleaning this data so you can use this data, trust it. But I wonder what a hackathon would look like for those 2 weeks of cleaning the data to get it ready.
I think it's a great question. I think it's both a skill that people need to learn in terms of data cleansing. So how do we teach that skill? And also, how do we think about it from a trust perspective of knowing whether or not it's a trustworthy data set? I think it'd be a really interesting concept to figure out how we simplify it a little bit, but also bring people more confidence to actually do it. It'd be a fun hackathon project.
Yeah.
I think that even when we do that pre-cleansing first before presenting the data to students, it wouldn't hurt to let them know, this is presented to you this way, but in fact, we had to do some preparation so it wouldn't be as hard, and even for so that we have time enough to deal with to find the answers we are looking for. But in the real world, you can find more challenges than those you are seeing today.
That's actually really interesting. Again, pulling back that curtain for the students themselves, showing what preparation had to go in. I like that.
Yeah, at least have them aware that things in the real world will not always be like as clean as they are seeing it that day. I think it's a good point, Oz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you'd have to do some kind of a personality inventory, because predictive analysis, fancy charts and everything, that's all slick and sexy. Those are your guitar players and your singers, and then the people that clean the data, they got to be okay dealing with all that muck. You know, this is a special type of person that does that kind of stuff.
Great point. And then Steve, also your point about each situation being independent is also a great point. It might be something where we want to provide different examples to students so that they see data in different contexts and learn the transferable skill versus learning how to clean one particular data set. So I'll move on just in the interest of time here to make sure that we're getting through all of this content. And I wanted to pull back the curtain on what we're actually talking about. Now, I was talking along the way as I was walking through that template of where we've made explicit design decisions to make it easier for students, to make it more understandable, to make it more fun. And there are three things that I want you to take away from that. The first is simplify. If there's a way to simplify, it's generally the right step is what we found. So for example, that color coding of sheet tabs where we did green for the functional tabs and yellow for the tabs for students, those using of buttons to navigate so that it becomes more like an app, less like a spreadsheet. Explaining new navigation as it comes up. So that was that initial sheet at the beginning where we actually explained the different definitions of Excel words, like what is a grid? And then we also, we think a lot about how we actually lay out the content. So for example, in that template, we only had you scroll up and down. Excel is infinite in two directions, which we found is really stressful for students because they don't actually know where the content is that they're supposed to be looking at it. So in moving it into that kind of, they only have to look in one direction to find the content, then they feel more confidence that they're actually finding all of that content that they're supposed to be. Practicing along the way is the second piece that we've learned. That's teaching a concept, having the students try the concept, repeat, reinforce, have them do it again, and kind of beat it to death. So we saw that introduction to data cards, and we saw it come back time and time again in different ways so that we're really reaching each student where they're at. We're giving them practice on actually using the concept and pulling information out of it, making those connections between the different data sets, the different relationships. And then finally, from an Excel perspective, something that is hugely beneficial in all of these templates is data validation. Data validation is how you make a dropdown in Excel, and dropdowns are your friend because it means that you can simplify and practice along the way. So we would reduce the amount of context on one page by putting things behind a dropdown. So we looked at that when we were talking about the Orca facts. We had 4 categories of facts. We could have given you one long report to read about Orca facts, but since we had those categories, we put each of the combinations of facts behind a dropdown. So you can still access all the information, but you're not seeing everything at once, which makes it a little bit more consumable, a little bit simpler. And then when you're practicing along the way, that's another great place to use a dropdown, because with the combination of conditional formatting, letting students know whether they're getting things right or wrong and giving them that real-time feedback, and data validation dropdowns for students to actually pick the answer, means that they're applying their learnings along the way. Okay, I have a whole bunch of resources. We're going to go really fast through them. We'll drop links in the chat along the way, but I wanted to, I saw in the survey at the beginning that there were going to be teachers, school administrators, parents, people who are excited about Excel, and that you're teaching all ranges of students. You're teaching students who are 8 years old, you're teaching students who are 12 years old or 16 years old or in college. So we have a whole smattering of resources that we're really excited for you to use, give us feedback on, and tell us what's missing so that we can continue to build out this library of different resources for you to use. I'll go real fast, but happy to take questions after all this. So the first one is our first Day of Data program is Day of Data Rockets. It's intended for students from 8 to 12 years old, so it's really people who are just starting to use reading to learn information along the way. So we start with the very basics of what is data, why does it matter, what are the different types of data, and how do I build them into a visualization? And build out that foundational set of information for students that they need to be able to do all the rest of the lessons. I will now hand it off to Elisabetta, who will join us for the next few slides on some different templates that we have to offer.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm going to quickly share my screen, and today I'd like to walk you through two of what we call our learning templates, which use a feature that we've added to Excel a couple of years ago, which is called Data Types. And we have recently partnered with Wolfram, which is a data provider, to get more data into Excel. So I'd like to walk you through the planets and comets template, and then I'll quickly show you the periodic table template as well. So the planets and comets template focuses on astronomy and is meant as a tool for teachers, for students, for parents that are trying to help their kids with astronomy homework, or just in general with anyone that either already has skills in astronomy or is just starting up. This template lets you compare all of the planets of the solar system. It uses data types, which are pretty cool because now all of the information that you see in this card is contained in a cell, and it can be dereferenced into the cells through dot notation like Sharon was talking about before. And one thing that I like to call out is that because of data types, now we can insert images in the grid. That are coming straight from Mercury, for example, has this image. So this template here lets you compare properties for all of the planets. Here you can see if you pick from the drop down, like Sharon was just talking about before, you can see different properties for each planet and how they compare to each other. And here is obviously scaled a version of what the planets look like next to each other. This tab over here will let you see some of the facts for each of the planets. So, for example, how the planets compare to Earth, or your weight on Mercury, or any planet. And then these are images as well that let you see how the planets, how they are staged from Earth and the solar system configuration. This template also lets you keep a track of comets. So if you know there's a comet coming that you could possibly see from your backyard, or you're just trying to study comets, you can record them in your list and you can add them as data types. And then you can go into the comet lookup tab to view all of the different, and as you can see here, this comet, for example, is not visible from Earth. And the pound busy means that the images are computed on the fly, because one thing that I like to call out is this data is not only reliable, but it's also refreshable. So you can refresh it any time since it is time and location dependent. This was pretty quick since I don't have much time, and I'll go into the periodic table. But we're going to be dropping, thank you, Célia, links in the chat for you to access these templates if you'd like to. Let me share my other template here. The periodic table template is a template that uses chemistry, so chemical elements and chemical compounds, and is meant for students, teachers, and parents to help kids with their homework, and for teachers to really facilitate the learning, because this way with data types, getting data into Excel can be quick and easy. So here we have a periodic table where you can see all of the elements. With the little icon, you can click on to view a card. And here you can filter by certain properties, so electronegativity, and you can see here the color, it uses conditional formatting, and the numbers here for electronegativity change. So moving on to the Elements tab, here through this tab you can see all of the elements. You can extract more properties through this property menu, and you can click on any to view all of the information. The compound list is similar to the Comet list we saw before, where you can record all of the compounds that you're interested in learning about, and by typing them underneath here. And then you can actually choose from this drop down all of the different compounds that you have in the previous list, and you can see a structured diagram. You can see here all of the properties that make up the compound as well. And then lastly, there's a practice tab, which lets you show your understanding and practice your knowledge. And for example, if you type in hydrogen here, which is the element for H, you get a check mark that validates that you answered correctly. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elisabetta, for that whirlwind tour. And if you're interested in viewing some of these other templates, there are a whole list of them that use data types. We've also posted the link in the chat. Oakley, I think you had a great question around how we're actually keeping teachers up to date. We use a whole bunch of different methods. We do conversations like this. We work directly with school districts to give them more feedback or answer specific questions that they have. We have some communities built around the HackingStem functionality itself, where we're actually working directly with people to both build out new content and figure out what gaps we have that we should be filling, and also to do professional development training on the content that we already have. And then finally, we're always looking for new opportunities. So if you do have other sources or places that you think it would be helpful to post this content, it is all open to the public to use, and we would love to see it spread even more and hear more feedback from people. So hit us up if you want to learn more. Continuing to fly through a bunch of resources, the next up is the HackingStem content. So we talked a little bit about HackingStem as the name of our team. It's also the name of a set of lessons, and the goal of these lessons is to combine the physical world with the technological world with data, so that students can build something, get their hands a little bit dirty, and then see the results of that in real time. So here's one of our canonical examples of building a robotic hand. The students build this robotic hand out of cardboard and smoothie straws. They build this sensorized glove out of cardboard and sensors they build themselves. And all of this makes this building of a robot a lot more affordable. So if the students needed to buy each of these sensors, they would come out to about $20 a sensor. So a glove would cost $100. Now, it would be awesome if we invested that much money in STEM education, but we're not quite there yet. If the students build them themselves, though, out of copper tape, then they can build these sensors for about 20 cents each. So that comes out to $1 in US currency that they can actually build this whole glove for. Then once they connect that glove, they can start moving that hand. And once they move that hand, if they connect it in through an add-in called Data Streamer, they can actually see that in real time in Excel. So the student actually can move their fingers, that moves the robot, and the robot moves the data actually in Excel, so that they can see the flex and extension of the different fingers. And there's a host of these available on the website, aka.ms/HackingStem.
And to complement that, if someone is interested in the streamer, we also had a session a while ago here on the Meetup about Data Streamer by Cristiano Galvão. The video is available on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, it was on May 18, 2020.
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, for all of you who are working with older students, we also have things for you. So FarmBeats for Students is intended more at the high school age, so that's about 14 to 18 years old. And the goal of FarmBeats for Students is to give you kind of that introduction to using AI and apply it to an agricultural context. So this is intended for students who are in more of a rural environment who might not see how STEM applies directly to them. But this is all about how you can use AI to actually make your plants grow better or understand diseases that are affecting your plants. It's about using AI to solve a real-world problem while building data literacy and basic AI skills. So it's a combination of Microsoft Excel and Loeb, which is a way that students actually can train an AI model behind the scenes. It comes with curriculum and resources about including information about Microsoft's responsible AI framework. So students are learning about how to do AI, but also how to do it in the right way, how to do it in a responsible way. And then it also includes a hardware component with Raspberry Pi sensors. And then the final piece that I'll leave you with is all of these are resources free to use, but we also focus on building community and discussion and bringing people together around it. So we'd like to invite anyone who's interested to join the Excel Beta community. It's hosted as a part of a Teams community and as a part of our education program at Microsoft. You would sign an NDA, so you'd get access to all of this information. NDA is non-disclosure agreement. So you're getting access to really the cutting edge information. And in addition, you're connecting with other professionals like yourselves who are interested in data literacy, interested in teaching students about data and spreadsheets and visualizations. So we're excited to both use this community to really figure out where we as an app, as a company, should be going next, and also to promote discussion around this, because we saw a gap where teachers were really excited to talk about data, but didn't really have anybody in their own communities yet to share that information with. So that is actually the end of my presentation. Are there any questions that we've not yet covered?
Let's see. I think we
iPads,
covered
John.
much
That's
everything. Yeah.
That's a great question
from John.
So we are currently working with our mobile team to see if we can make this experience work on mobile as well. Mobile is a little bit harder because the screen size is smaller. And a lot of what we're doing is trying to simplify and add space, do layout that makes it really straightforward for students. So we're still working on actually bringing that to mobile devices. It does work on Chromebooks, which is a really popular device as well. And that's why we work on an internet, fully web-enabled template.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
We have a hand raised by Tracy.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Just in terms of some things for older students, and I'm wondering specifically with financial literacy if you have some templates that way.
It's a great question. Okay. It's actually something that we are very excited to start thinking about. So if you would be interested in partnering with us on it, it's an area that we hear a lot about as a gap, and lots of people use Excel to build their budgets. So we don't have things today, but we would love to build something out.
Okay, that's fantastic.
How old would be the Tracy? How old would be the students you are referring to? Is it secondary school, post high school?
So mostly grade 11 and 12 students. Yeah, so I just find there's a real gap, and you know, they're in the process of changing the math curriculum a little bit, and so there's a lot of great resources coming out, but I find what happens sometimes is there's so much good stuff out there that you almost get overwhelmed with, you know, trying to learn all the different platforms and carry on with the curriculum based things. Yeah, so that's an ongoing issue, but nonetheless, I just really feel that students, and you covered this quite well, they really need to recognize how it is important and how it applies to their future.
Definitely. And financial literacy is a huge part of how data applies to real life.
Definitely.
Steve, you had a question about math literacy and if we have some assumptions there. It depends on the program. So a lot of the HackingStem kind of physical to technology component, a lot of that assumes some basic math. Typically, that is intended for students in maybe 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old. But if you look at something like the Day of Data Rockets program, that kind of takes away those assumptions and starts from scratch. So it's more of a foundational piece. We're trying to span the gamut with these so that you can, again, I keep using the term mix and match, but a lot of what we're finding is that students are all varied in the amount of information they have, the amount of background, what their interests are. So we're really trying to give lots of different options so that students can build the right combination of resources for themselves.
I was thinking about that point of the array of options, resources, platforms with learning resources that teachers have available for them. And now Excel would be one more item available, one more option available. And I also wonder how the acceptance of this tool, Excel, will receive, how the acceptance will be from the teachers, knowing that many people still think of Excel as Excel was many years ago, so they are not aware of things like the Wolfram data types, 3D maps, and other many, and even simpler things that make Excel so cool to use, so important to know and to learn. And I think that besides targeting the students themselves, it will be important to also think about the teachers and how we can make them aware of the tool, how Excel is today, and how they can learn and access the tool. Any
That's a
thoughts on
great
that?
point. Actually, something that we have found is that students are actually pretty willing to try whatever you throw at them. And it's teachers who have the most reservations about jumping into something that they aren't comfortable with or that they don't quite know how it works. So professional development is something that is super important to our team as well, and something that we partner with Microsoft stores, we partner with trainers across the world, and we partner with teachers to see how we can scale out this and bring trusted sources in to actually introduce teachers, because the gatekeeper to the classroom is the teacher, and the teacher obviously wants to understand what they're teaching before they teach it.
Yeah, of course. John is making a point that us Excel trainers need to help teachers. And he has done a class for middle school teachers a while ago. And one teacher said, I don't know why I signed up for this. I heard Excel is hard. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just with teachers, it's with people in general. I think everyone has used Excel at least once or twice for some reason at work or personal reasons, but people struggle with the tool, and the first impression they may have may not be helpful to help them continue to learn the tool, to be engaged and interested in learning how to use it. I think that's one of the main struggles anyone trying to teach Excel to someone else, either for business or for data literacy or any other reason. I think it's one of the main obstacles.
Definitely. So I know we're nearing the end of our session time, and I wanted to quickly give you this link to the survey. I'm happy to continue the discussion, but we'd also love your feedback along the way of how you're currently using data, how Excel could be better for you, and anything that you think we could do to help support you as you're training the next generation and giving them more confidence around data.
I think it is important if you can really take the opportunity to provide feedback. I was mentioning on the chat, some people were not aware, although I think I sent an email about that to the members, but I know that a lot of emails get lost somehow in our inboxes. And so I created a form for teachers to register on these sessions so that people wouldn't feel obligated to open an account on Meetup to participate in this session that is a little bit different from the other presentations we have done about Excel topics. And I was quite surprised to see the feedback that we got there. A lot of teachers, but a lot of people that were not necessarily teachers. They were school administrators or had other roles. And besides being interested in the topic of data literacy, people were also interested in learning Excel. So I think it would be interesting to receive your feedback so that we can know what other initiatives we could take from now on and see how we can serve you better. So if you can help us with that, it would be really appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. We're also always investing in resources for teachers as well. So whether that's writing documentation or creating a new professional development session or working with our teammates in Microsoft stores to actually scale this out. So if there are concepts you want to learn, let us know so that we can figure out how we get those materials available.
Sure. Yeah, feel free to reach out if there's any way, anything we can do for you guys at schools, maybe another session sometime regarding this topic or something else, even more Excel focused for teachers. I don't know, anything that you think it would be important for you to help you with your learning of Excel and to help you with your students, let us know. Happy to help here. Professional development. Yeah, John is mentioning that on the chat. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments?
Looks like we got a hand up from Catherine.
Yes, Catherine. Nice to see you.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Sorry. I was just thinking actually about people that live in remote communities and how amazing Excel is as a tool, especially for young people, Indigenous communities in Northern Canada, where maybe it's harder for them to get jobs that are physically in a company, but to be able to do remote work. And also in the developing world, there's a lot of, I don't, that's probably not the right term to use, but in Africa, in countries in Africa, there's a lot of people who would really benefit from learning these skills and being able to start a business. I see Excel for young people as having this amazing equalizing opportunity to help people overcome poverty. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. We hope so as well.
And that's a great point because these days when a lot of people can work from home as long as they have an internet connection on one end, and on the other side, I see a growing demand for Excel skills. I'm noticing on everywhere. on news, on the job posts that I see. I have a couple of alerts, and I've noticed that in the last couple of months, job posts about Excel experts, even VBA, and the other positions related to the Power Platform are in high demand. So, and this is something that, again, as long as someone has access to internet, they can learn. There's a ton of resources available, and they can make a job for themselves out of those skills, for sure. Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? Any other questions? Tracy, I think she has her hands up, but I think she had the opportunity to speak. And I think we are good. Everybody is very quiet.
It's been a pleasure to speak with all of you. And if you do have questions or feedback, please feel free to reach out. I posted an email alias, or actually a link to a form for us, aka.ms/email help. We do read everything that comes in through there, and we promise to reply from a real human. So if you do have feedback, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was a really great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon, Elisabetta, for this presentation, for all the hard work you put in to prepare this presentation, all the topics, all the links. 1,000 apologies to everyone who was trying to join us. I did thought it was weird that such few people, only a few people had joined, but I didn't understand what was going on. So again, apologies for that. And I will be sending the email as usual in a couple of days with the link for the video recording and all the materials that Sharon is sharing with us, including all the links that we posted in the chat today. Okay. So Sharon and Elisabetta, again, thank you so much. I think that people know where to find you. If there's any final words that you would like to leave us with, feel free to do so, and then I will end the meeting recording.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Célia, for giving us the opportunity to speak with everyone and really reaching out to all of you in the community. We're really excited to share this information. We're really excited for you to try it out, give us feedback, and let us know how we can help more.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure to work in this project and see, start to notice all the people that we need to reach out to. And we've been in this world, this little bubble of the Excel lovers, the members of the Meetup group, but there's so much more to do outside the community that we are used to participate in. So it was a great opportunity to become aware of that. Thank you for letting me to collaborate with you. So, okay, so I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I'll be stopping the recording. Feel free to stay for a little longer if you want to just chat. Let me just stop the recording. Stop recording. Stop recording.